In some of the previous lessons and practice questions, we've seen a very popular kind of trap that the test makers like to use, and that's having answer choices that kind of fit, but are not clearly supported by the sentence. In this lesson, we'll examine 5 other traps among the answer choices. The first trap is words that have multiple meanings. To set this up, please consider this sentence. Here we have Kevin observing the townspeople below. This suggests that Kevin must have reached the top of the mountain, so climbing is a good prediction here. Now when we get to answer choice C, we must recognize that the word scaling can have multiple meanings. Scaling can be the act of removing scales, as in scaling a fish, or scaling can mean to climb, in which case C is a great fit along with answer choice A. So always keep in mind that there are many words in the English language that have more than one meaning. To get you started, here are some examples of other words that have 1 or 2 well-known definitions, as well as secondary meanings that are just as important to know. Alright, moving along. Another common trap among the answer choices involves words with perceived definitions and connotations. Here's an example. Here we need words that describe the type of treatment that would lead to war crime charges. Beginning with answer choice A, we have gratuitous. Now we may have heard the word gratuitous many times in our lives, likely in the context of gratuitous violence in movies. And if that's the only association we have, we might feel that answer choice A is a good fit. However, keep in mind that in that association, the actual word violence is what implies the violence. In fact, the word gratuitous merely means unwarranted, which could be a bad thing or a good thing. So since gratuitous treatment need not lead to war crime charges, answer choice A does not fit. The correct answers here are barbarous and truculent, since those kinds of treatment would indeed lead to war crime charges. Now there are many words that people have misconceptions about. For example, many attribute negative meaning to words such as rhetoric, capricious, and idolatrous, because these words often appear in negative context in sentences. However, those words by themselves are completely neutral. Conversely, people often attribute positive meaning to words such as prolific and aesthetic, when these words are neutral. Whether or not these words are positive or negative depend on the context around them, just as the word gratuitous does. So beware of attributing tone that isn't there. Alright, moving along. Another kind of trap answer involves words that look right, but have a completely different meaning from what we might expect. These traps typically involve words that are especially difficult or uncommon. Consider the following example. This sentence is all about timing, and we probably won't have a hard time predicting a word such as early. However, we might run into trouble if we don't know what all of the words mean in the answer choices. Answer choice C, for example, has the prefix X, which means out of, and it has the root temper, which has to do with time. So given all of this, answer choice C might look very appealing. In fact, it's intentionally meant to look appealing. However, extemporaneous really means improvised. Since Mrs. Jenkins wasn't improvising anything, answer choice C just doesn't make any sense. The correct answers here are A and F. Okay, the next trap to examine is synonym pairs that are the opposite of what we need. This trap works well when we fail to notice an important relationship word in a sentence. In these instances, we may predict the word that is the opposite of what's needed, and this is when the trap answers seem very appealing. Take this example. Here we know that Marshall was embarrassed about the subpar job. Now, since a subpar job would typically receive criticism, we might make this our prediction. If we did so, answer choices B and E would be very appealing since they fit perfectly. However, we're missing a very important word here. The mayor is described as unsuspecting, which means the mayor was unaware of the subpar job. So Marshall was probably receiving the opposite of what we initially thought. Marshall was receiving some kind of praise or award. Now that we've correctly identified the relationship word in the sentence, we can see that the correct answers here are A and D. Okay, the last trap to examine involves answers that appear to fit perfectly in a sentence, but don't have a match among the remaining answer choices that will allow us to create two sentences with similar meanings. Consider this example. Here we're told that nowadays nearly everyone is familiar with Dalton's atomic theory, and the relationship "but" suggests that this was not the case in the early 1800s. When we examine the answer choices, we see that A, B, and C could all fit in context quite nicely, but only two of them create sentences with similar meanings. Pioneering, which means original, is a great fit here, but no other word among the answer choices creates a second sentence with a similar meaning. Answers A and C, on the other hand, both mean understood by few, so they must be the correct answers here. Okay, let's summarize. In this lesson, we reviewed a common trap from earlier lessons, and we examined 5 more traps that help the GRE test makers make answer choices look appealing.